They said love was beautiful until it didn't come with a paycheck. When I first met Daniel, he didn't have a car, he didn't have a fancy apartment, and he definitely didn't have a savings account. But he had ambition in his eyes, kindness in his heart, and a way of making me feel like I was the only person in the world that mattered. He was passionate, hardworking, and dreaming of building something that no one else believed in, except me. But the world around me didn't see Daniel the way I did. My friends smirked when I said his name. My family gave me that half-polite, half-pitying look whenever he walked into a room. I was told over and over, in whispers and in loud, direct warnings, "You're wasting your time on someone who can't give you a future." The future to them was wrapped in credit limits, job titles, and square footage, not in connection, not in joy. At first I fought them, I defended him, I told them he's going to make it, and I believed it with everything in me. But the pressure was relentless. It came in small jabs. My mom comparing him to my cousin's husband who owned 2 restaurants. A friend laughing because he worked part-time and took the bus. Every single person I trusted was telling me that loving him meant settling, that choosing him was choosing failure. And then there were the conversations I had in private, the late-night battles in my own mind. I started questioning myself. What if I was wrong? What if I did throw away my future because I was holding on to potential, not reality? I couldn't even tell you the moment I started believing them more than I believed in him. It was slow, like water dripping onto stone. Enough pressure, and eventually, something breaks. One night, after another tense dinner with my parents, where they laid out their version of my options, men with careers, with money, with the ability to take care of me, I broke down. I wasn't crying because I stopped loving him. I was crying because I felt like I had no choice, so I ended it. I remember standing in front of him, shaking, tears streaming down my face, telling him, "I just can't do this anymore." I lied. I told him it was because we were growing apart, but the truth, I was being pushed hard by a world that told me I needed more, that love wasn't enough unless it came with luxury. He didn't argue. He just looked at me like I had shattered him. And when he turned and walked away, it felt like the world went quiet. I thought I would feel relief. Instead, I felt like I had betrayed both of us. Everyone around me told me I'd done the right thing. They told me I was being smart, that one day I'd thank them, but they never asked if I was happy. They never asked if I felt empty inside after choosing comfort over connection, logic over love. And the truth is, no matter how good their intentions were, they forced me to leave someone I never stopped loving. The days after I left, Daniel felt like I was moving through fog, blurry, heavy, and silent. On the outside, I smiled. I said all the right things. It just wasn't working out. We wanted different things. I even convinced myself for a little while that I'd made a mature decision. But when I laid down at night, the truth came crawling back. I didn't leave because I stopped loving him. I left because I listened to everyone but my own heart. It's strange, isn't it, how love can be so loud when it's just the two of you, but so drowned out when the world gets involved. When it was just me and Daniel, everything felt simple. He'd hold my hand like it was something sacred. He'd talk about his dreams with this fire that made me believe in them too. He'd look at me like I was his whole world. And for a while, I felt like maybe that was enough. Maybe we could be that rare kind of couple that made it without the money, without the plan, just love. But every phone call from my parents chipped away at that dream. Every brunch with my friends turned into subtle digs. They'd say things like, "Don't you want someone who can really provide for you? Or you can't build a future on ambition alone." And I started nodding. Not because I agreed, but because I was tired. Tired of defending him. Tired of defending myself. When you hear something enough times, it starts to sound like truth. And I let that noise get louder than the voice in my heart. The night I ended things with Daniel was one of the hardest nights of my life. I remember it vividly. I couldn't even look him in the eyes when I said the words. I kept repeating, I just need time to figure things out. Even though I already knew I was breaking his heart. The pain on his face, pure, raw confusion and heartbreak, still haunts me. He didn't beg, he didn't yell. He just asked, "Is this really what you want?" And I didn't answer, because I couldn't lie to his face again. After he left, I collapsed on the floor. I cried harder than I ever had, not because he was gone, but because I knew I'd just walked away from something real. Not perfect, not easy, but real. And the worst part, no one around me noticed. They thought I was moving on, that I was finally coming to my senses. They saw me smiling in pictures, showing up to events, being social. But no one saw the nights I stayed up, staring at the ceiling, asking myself if I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. Because I knew, deep down, I had. I felt like I had betrayed a promise, not just to him, but to myself. The promise that love was worth fighting for. That I would stand by someone who had nothing, but still gave me everything. I left not because I didn't love him, but because I let fear dress itself up as logic. And in trying to please everyone else, I lost the one person who truly saw me. After Daniel and I broke up, I tried to erase him from my life. Not because I stopped loving him, but because it hurt too much to even think about him. I unfollowed him on everything, deleted his pictures. I boxed up the little memories, notes, gifts, all the things that once made me smile, and shoved them into the back of my closet like they didn't matter. But no matter what I did, he stayed in my mind. Every time I saw someone chase a dream, I thought of him. Every time someone mentioned a startup, I wondered what Daniel was doing. And then, little by little, I started hearing about him. At first it was small, mutual friends casually mentioning his name, saying things like, "He's still working on that app of his," or "He's been really focused lately." It stung a little every time, because I had told him to focus. I'd told him to chase his goals. I just didn't think he'd have to do it without me. Months passed and the updates started changing. Suddenly it was, "Did you hear Daniel just got his first investor?" Or "He landed a major partnership." I'd nod and smile like I was happy for him. And deep down I was. But there was always this ache inside. Not because I wanted his money. I never cared about that. It was because I knew I wasn't there to see him win. I wasn't there to see the late nights pay off. I wasn't there for the moment when the world finally saw what I saw in him from the beginning. Then came the headline. I wasn't even looking for it. It just appeared. Someone sent it to me out of the blue. From broke to billionaire, how one underdog built a tech empire. My hands shook as I clicked the link. There he was, Daniel, in a sharp suit, standing confidently in front of the company he built from nothing. The article talked about his journey, his struggles, his vision, everything he used to whisper to me in quiet moments when no one else believed in him. And I couldn't lie to myself anymore. He had done it. He didn't just survive. He soared. The irony was brutal. The very thing everyone said he'd never be, the reason they told me to walk away, was now the thing that made him headline worthy. He was the same man I loved, just in a bigger house with more zeros in his bank account. But the heart, that passion, that grit, it was always there. And suddenly, everyone who once doubted him was cheering. Everyone who laughed at his ambition now wanted to be associated with him. It was hard to watch, not because I wanted what he had, but because I knew I had left not a failure, but a future legend. They said I was smart for letting him go, but they were wrong. I wasn't smart. I was scared. Scared of being the only one who believed in something that hadn't come true yet. And now that something had become everything, the world had finally caught up to the man I already knew he was. I never expected to see him again. After everything, after the silence, the headlines, the years of wondering, I thought that chapter of my life had closed for good. But life has a strange way of circling back, doesn't it? It was a random evening, one of those nights where you almost cancel plans but don't. I walked into a charity gala with a friend, something fancy, formal, not really my scene. The moment I stepped into the room, I felt it. That pull, that presence. I looked up and there he was. Daniel. He didn't look like the boy I remembered. He was sharper now, more polished, more sure of himself. The same eyes, but with a kind of calm power behind them. Confidence, not arrogance. The kind that only comes from fighting every battle and winning most of them alone. I froze. My heart was racing. I hadn't rehearsed this moment. I didn't even know if he'd say hello, or just look past me like I was a stranger. But he walked over, he smiled, and I could feel every part of my carefully constructed world cracking, just a little. "Hey," he said, soft and simple, like no time had passed. "Hi," I managed, trying to keep my voice steady. We made small talk at first, the kind that feels too light to carry all the weight between two people with history. But soon we slipped back into something real. He told me about his company, but not in a bragging way. Just facts, updates, pieces of a journey. I listened, proud and aching all at once. I told him what I'd been doing, fumbling a little, unsure if anything I said could ever match what he'd become. And then, in the quiet moment that followed, he said, "I never hated you. You did what you thought you had to do." I blinked. It was so kind, so unexpected. I had played that moment in my mind so many times, him angry, cold, resentful. But this was grace. It was a man who had grown not just in wealth, but in wisdom. We kept talking. We laughed. We remembered little things, old songs, inside jokes, late night drives in his rusted car. And there it was again, that feeling, the same warmth, the same pull that had always existed between us. But now it was different, seasoned, older, deeper, like time had added layers we didn't know we needed. He asked if I wanted to catch up sometime. Just coffee, he said, just to talk. I said yes. That one coffee turned into two. Then dinners. Then long walks where we spoke about everything we never had the courage to say before. I told him the truth, that I had never stopped loving him, that I had let people talk me out of the best thing that had ever happened to me. He didn't rush to forgive, but he didn't close the door either. He just listened, and slowly, day by day, we rebuilt something we thought was gone. It didn't happen overnight, but it happened, and one morning, years after the world had told me I was smart for leaving him, I stood next to him, not as a mistake from his past, but as his wife. It's funny how quickly people change their tune. Back when Daniel was just a dreamer with holes in his sneakers and nothing in his pockets, everyone around me had something to say. They said I deserved more. They called him a phase, a mistake I'd look back on and laugh about one day. But now those same voices suddenly speak with admiration, pretending they always knew he had it in him, pretending they believed in the man they once rolled their eyes at. It's surreal watching people rewrite the past to fit the present. I remember a family friend who once cornered me at a party, warning me about wasting my youth on a guy with nothing to offer. That same person now brags about how they always saw his potential. People love a success story, but only after it's already written. Before that, they just want you to play it safe. Date the stable guy, marry the man with a steady paycheck, choose the known path. They don't see the beauty in betting on someone still building themselves. And now that Daniel's name is in articles, and his face is on magazine covers, everyone is suddenly interested in our story, but only the glossy version. They want the fairy tale ending, not the messy middle. They want to hear how I supported him through it all, not how I walked away under pressure. They ignore the part where I cried myself to sleep and doubted my own heart. They skip the reality that I wasn't some perfect woman who waited patiently while he built his empire. I made a mistake. I gave in to the noise, but the truth is, love brought us back, not convenience, not wealth. Love, what's wild is how people now envy the very relationship they once questioned. I hear whispers. She's so lucky she married him. As if I struck gold by accident. As if I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. They don't see the history, the heartbreak, the rebuilding. They only see the private jets, the glamorous events, the luxury. But none of that was what I loved him for then, and it's not what I love him for now. What they don't understand is that I didn't marry a billionaire. I married the boy who used to walk me home in the rain because he didn't have a car. The one who talked about his dreams with wide eyes and no guarantee. The one who made me laugh when I had nothing else to hold on to. The world might envy the man he's become, but I fell in love with the man he was when no one else cared. And honestly, it's hard not to feel a little bitter when the same people who once made me feel small for loving him now treat me like I won some kind of prize. Like I somehow became more valuable because of the ring on my finger and the bank account attached to his name. But their praise means nothing now, because they didn't believe in him when it mattered. I did, and that's the difference. People always talk about love like it's supposed to be perfect, like, if it's real, it'll be easy, smooth, undeniable. But that's not love. Real love isn't shiny or flawless. It's messy, complicated, sometimes painful. It's two people choosing each other, even when the world gives them every reason not to. And that's what Daniel and I had. Not the kind of love you find in movies or fairy tales, but the kind you fight for, the kind that survives storms. When we first fell for each other, we didn't have much. No money, no plan, just dreams and this magnetic pull that kept drawing us together. Looking back, it would have been so much easier if I had trusted that feeling. But when you're surrounded by people telling you that love alone won't pay the bills, that dreams don't build houses, you start to second guess everything. I let their voices drown out what I knew deep down to be true. But here's the thing about real love. It doesn't go away just because you try to silence it. You can bury it under fear, under guilt, under what-ifs, but it stays. And if it's strong enough, it finds its way back. When Daniel came back into my life, everything in me felt like it clicked back into place. We were different people by then. Older, wiser, a little more guarded, maybe, but the foundation hadn't changed. The way he looked at me hadn't changed. And when we started talking again, really talking, I realized we'd both carried that same love with us all those years. We hadn't just moved on, we'd paused, we'd grown, and somehow the timing was right again. Being with him now is nothing like the fantasy people try to paint. It's not about the luxury or the money or the public image. It's still about those quiet moments, the way he makes my coffee just the way I like it, the way he still laughs at my bad jokes, the way he pulls me close when he thinks I'm overthinking. It's about the comfort, the safety, the history, and knowing that no matter how much the world changes around us, we've already been through the hardest part. Because we didn't just fall in love, we found our way back to it. We took something fragile and broken and slowly, patiently, made it whole again. And that takes more than passion. It takes forgiveness. It takes vulnerability. It takes the kind of strength that's invisible to the world, but everything behind closed doors. There are still people who say I'm lucky, and I am, but not because I married a billionaire. I'm lucky because I got a second chance. Because I learned that the world doesn't get to decide who you love or why. And because I stood in front of the same man I once walked away from, looked him in the eyes, and promised I'd never make that mistake again. They called him poor, I called him mine.